What's up, electronic music producers? Today we're going to talk about climaxes. Climaxes in any kind of electronic music, because all the genres are pretty much the same once you break it down to this level of abstraction. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you 4 techniques to structure your climaxes. And after that, I don't want to hear anybody say that they're having trouble with their climaxes ever again. I'm just kidding. It's okay. You can have trouble with whatever you want. Let's go over the 4 techniques right now. Technique number 1 is what I'm going to call the committed turnaround. Do you remember what a turnaround is? Basically, you've got yourself a drum loop or a musical phrase, let's say, and after a while, when it starts to loop, it starts to get a bit boring. So what you do is that at the end of the musical phrase, you build in a slight change. That's called the turnaround. And sometimes a turnaround can be as small as just leaving out one drum hit or adding a second clap or just doing a small variation at the end of the drum loop. However, you can also do what I call a committed turnaround, which is to really take the end of a musical section and really mess with it, let it completely deconstruct until you restart the loop right after that. So let's look at this project that I've been working on here for Face the Sun. So let's talk about the intro here. Basically, we've got ourselves an 8-bar loop. You can tell by the length of the clip of the kick, right? We've got ourselves an 8-bar loop here, another 8-bar loop, and then another 8-bar loop. However, the last section has been edited out, and I do what I call a committed turnaround. And so let me play you the 8-bar loop from here so you can hear. It's just an intro. Okay, so we're going to repeat that now. And notice how this is going to be the committed turnaround. There we go. And the transition happens and a couple of elements go away, a couple of elements come in, but basically all it does is it cuts off the end of a loop. It commits to building some more tension and release there than usual. That's technique number 1, the committed turnaround. That brings me to technique number 2, which I call the linear rise. It's quite simple. This is really a type of break, not a turnaround. It is where you take an entire 8-bar section and you just cut out a whole bunch of elements, and then from the moment you cut things out, you start building the energy so that at the drop, when the beat comes back in, you have a release of energy. So let me show you an example of that now. Filters opening up, bit of tension. Simple. That's the linear rise. It's uncomplicated. It feels very much like pulling a bow and arrow and releasing the bow and arrow. Tension and release. That's at the end of the day what you're always trying to do with these climaxes. A couple of things you can do in a linear rise is introduce new elements, add in white noise and transitions. Remember this video that I did on risers, which can give you a whole bunch of new strategies. Open and close low pass filters, lengthen and tighten your decay and release parameters, increase reverb and delay times to make things more splashy, then reduce that to make things less splashy and more tight, make tonal and atonal risers. There's so much you can do to build tension in a simple linear structure. But let's talk about technique number 3, which is called the trilogy break. I talked about this in a video called Anatomy of a Break, and it's a structure that you see a lot in electronica in general, and it's called a trilogy break because it has 3 main chapters. So you come out of a beat section before the break starts, right? You come out of a beat section where everything's very full, and suddenly you go into chapter 1 of the break, which is the fall. The fall is where everything kind of falls apart. You remove maybe the chord structure, you remove most of the rhythmical section, you really let all of the energetic parts of the song really fall apart, and you take them away from the listener so that you're only left with a few elements that kind of disorient the listener. This can be a little bit challenging when you're trying to make something for a dance floor, because for a dance floor, if you take away too much energy, it might kill the dancing vibe. So be wary of that. But anyway, In the fall, that's the place where you can take away as much as you can to completely change the vibe of the track. And you can do that, you can hold that for maybe 8 bars. You can really create a sparseness and an atmosphere that really gives people a bit of a break from the dance section so they can contemplate a little bit the emotions that they're feeling. But then, after maybe 4 bars or 8 bars of this fall, you do something called the rise. And the rise is very similar to our linear break. The rise is where you just start ramping up the energy. You add percussion, you let filters open up, you add in transition effects, you add tonal and atonal risers, you add in new percussion, you build up the energy, all to suggest that something is about to happen at the end of 8 bars. That was the second chapter of the trilogy break, the rise. And then you go into the third chapter, which is not the beat drop, but something called the hang. And the hang is a bit of a trick because the beat should have dropped there. If we respected the global rules or unspoken rules of electronic music, you would have normally have dropped the beat there, except you often give them like a vocal phrase or something unique, something that's kind of like a voice for them to contemplate just a moment before you actually drop the beat. I'm sure you've heard this in like kind of cliche techno and melodic techno, where everything builds up to a big climax and then there's this silence and like one vocal phrase and then boom, the beat drops. Now, instead of showing you an example of the trilogy break, I want to immediately go into technique number 4, which is called the double trilogy. So the double trilogy break is very similar to the trilogy break, except it happens twice. Once in a long version and once in a short version, both inside of the same break. What the heck? Let me show you. All right, so here we are in the same song, and I'm going to walk you through a double trilogy break. So let me start you from the end of the last beat section. That's our musical motif. And now we go into the fall, chapter 1. We take almost everything away. And in fact, I use this opportunity to introduce a chord progression that wasn't there before. Very trance kind of style. But let people want it more. Don't add too much energy at this point. And then we go into chapter 2 of the trilogy break, the rise. So we add in the percussion. People can clearly get their rhythmical orientation if they had lost it. In this case, didn't really lose it too much. And where the beat would drop, the beat would normally drop here, where I'm highlighting, right? You would think that the beat would drop there, but instead we do another trilogy break. Another fall, another rise. Take everything away again. And then we're gonna give everything back again. Here we go. Using filters to bring back in all the percussion. And boom, there we go. The dance section with only this one motif and pretty minimal percussion. So in this case, I didn't actually even really use the trilogy metaphor because I didn't use the hang. The hang would be a moment here. Actually, let me show you how you would add a hang. You would select some time, you would command I, which would insert time, and then this would be the hang. And let me show you how that feels. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you let them hang. And then you drop the beat. At festivals and stuff, this works incredibly well because, of course, everyone intuitively knows when the beat's going to drop, and then you just withhold it for a moment. Once you do that, though, the rest of your grid is going to be slightly off grid, so it's a real headache to work with. So if you can in your workflow do this insertion last, it's actually the best thing to do. Here's a structure that we had. So from here to here is the fall, the energy goes down. From here to here, the energy goes up, it's a rise. And then from here to here, the energy goes down again. And from here to here, the energy goes up again. And then here's the next dance section. It's the double trilogy break, and as you can see, it has the potential to be endless actually. If you really want, you can keep going down and up and down and up and down and up and never bring the beat back. And so there you have it. 4 techniques for climaxes. Like this video and subscribe to help me with the algorithm. Leave a comment to show me some love. Go follow my Foundations of Electronic Music course if any of this went too fast for you. I've got a Patreon here and my Face the Sun music project on SoundCloud right there. You know what to do with both of those. Come show us on the Discord channel what you did with all of this. And until next time, stay producing, be good to one another, and take care. Bye-bye.